when World War II came along, you want to start there?
That'd be great. Did you enlist or volunteer?
I enlisted.
Okay.
World War II came along. I was superintendent of schools at Damon in Brazoria County. I was the youngest superintendent in the state at 26. And at midterm, Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, you know. It was on Sunday, and I had gone quail hunting that afternoon with a high school boy. We came in, my wife said, "What, how'd you shoot?" I said, "Well, honey, did pretty good. Killed 10 out of 12 shots." She said to a bunch of bachelor high school boys with me, "How'd you shoot?" Bunch? "Oh, Miss S, I didn't do that well." And I said, "Well, y'all gonna have to shoot better than that. The Japs just bombed Pearl Harbor." To show you how ignorant I was, I didn't even know where Pearl Harbor was. I didn't really. And I said, "You're not joking with me, are you?" And she said, "No, you just wait, listen to the radio." That was before TV, you know. So that kid came on the radio, and I listened to it. I said to my wife, I said, "Well, boy, I know where I'll be the next 4 years." She said, "Oh, you won't have to go as superintendent of school." And I said, "Honey, you think I'd hide behind this little old job, not help fight the war?" So when school was out, I resigned my job as superintendent of school and became a private Uncle Sam Army. Now, my birthday's in June, and I was 27 in June, and I went in July. So I was 27 when I went in. And they sent me to Camp Roberts, California for my basic training. And after I completed my basic training, they sent me to non-commissioned officer school. And on the 8th day, they pulled me out and promoted me to corporal. And sent me to infantry OCS, Fort Benning, Georgia, for 13 weeks. When I'd been in the Army 6 months and 14 days, I was second lieutenant. Then I was assigned to the 90th Infantry Division that was on Louisiana maneuvers. I made Louisiana maneuvers with them for a couple of months or so, I can't remember exactly. And then they called down for efficiency rating on all of the lieutenants. And every one of us, can't use the adjective I want to, that got an excellent or superior rating, we got our overseas orders. 69 of us from that division were sent overseas. So I went to Africa and joined the 3rd Infantry Division and fought the war with the 3rd Division. 3rd Division fought lots of war. Well, 3rd Division had the highest casualty rate of any other division, and then the 45th Division was next. But there was just any more, you know, any longer. And I never really heard a gun fired in anger in Africa. Oh my God, I got that terrible.
What was it like fighting in Africa?
Sir?
What was it like fighting in Africa?
I really didn't do any fighting in Africa. It was, I think the fighting that we did in Africa was primarily tank and Rommel, you remember?
Right.
And Patton, you remember General Patton? I hate to put this on tape, but he was crazy. Really.
Go ahead.
Really, General Patton had a screw loose. Terrible, really.
Why would you say that?
Because it was.
Okay.
Cut that off a minute, will you? And Captain Donaghy was the captain in the 45th Division. He'd been hurt. I'd been hurt, and was out of the hospital in what we call a replacement depot, going back to the front. And I saw him walk out of his tent, and it was about 50 feet or so apart, you know. And I saw that he had a 45th Division patch on. You know, the 45th Division patches, we call it the old dead buzzard outfit. That's what just jokingly, you know. And the 3rd Division had a blue and white stripe. And old Axis Annie, you know, broadcast for the Germans that there'd always be a third division as long as America had blue and white paint, you know. Well, anyway, Jim Dunnigan came out of his tent, and I said, I see you've got that old dead buzzard outfit. But I want you to know, buddy, if you just ready to whip me, I was weak as a chicken, ready. And I did like this, that means ceasefire, you know. I said, hell, buddy, my wife could whip me. And he said, what goddamn outfit are you from? And I reached, got my old helmet, old beat up helmet, 3rd Division patch on it. He said, oh, I beg your pardon, Captain, I thought you was some damn smart at replacements, you know. And he shook hands with him and said, come go to town with me. And I said, I'm so damn weak, but I don't. He said, I got to go get some shaving equipment. So come go with me. And I said, okay, I'll go. And I went with him. We got to be friends. And then later on, he lost his Jeep. And when he was wounded, you know, he lost his Jeep, and the British picked it up, and he was about to have to pay for his Jeep. And he called me and asked me, reckon I could help him. That was in the area that I was in and so on. And I talked to my colonel about it. He said, yes, go help him. But don't you stay gone over 24 hours. And that was back that the war's over, you know. And I found his Jeep, the British had it. Let me go back to the war. I joined the 3rd Division, and the first really combat I got in was Italy. Tough. Angio Beachhead. We lost 20,000 men killed there. Pitiful. They just nearly pushed us into the beaches. It lasted 4 months, you know. And on May the 23rd, 1944, we pushed off Angio on breakout.
And this is in Italy, right?
Yeah, this is Angio, Italy,
Right.
yes. That was south of Rome, before we captured Rome. And on May the 23rd, 1944, we had 186 men and 6 officers. And normally, you know, in the company, rifle company, you have only 168 men, but we had 186 because they knew we was going to have heavy casualties and all. On that morning, May the 23rd, 1944, we broke off from there. We had 50 dead in our company out of 186. And out of the 6 officers, all 6 of us were wounded, 2 dead. And you see this scar here? Artillery hit me there. Well, I got within about short 50 yards of my objective, was some old broken down stone building. And we were just totally exhausted. We'd been fighting for about 3 or 4 hours. Just staggered, falling down, you know. And I told the men, I said, lie down, man, lie down, take a break. But we had to charge those houses and we'd fallen down, you know. Sit down, lie down, take a break. But don't go to sleep. No, I said, take a 10-minute break. I said, no, 5 minutes. Don't go to sleep. And about that time, a sergeant fell down with me from my right rear and said something to me. And I said, damn it, Sergeant, talk to me where I can hear what you're saying. He said, I'm doing the best I can, Lieutenant. I looked up, and that sergeant had been shot through the mouth, had some teeth shot out, but he brought me the company commander radio. The company commander had his arm shot near the off and told us, take this radio up to Etheridge. And that sergeant, even though he was shot through the mouth, he brought that radio to me. And I said, talk to me, Sergeant, where I can hear what you're saying, where I can understand what you're saying. He said, I'm doing the best I can. I looked up and he shot through the mouth. I said, well, hell, of course you are, Sergeant. He said, sir, I brought you the company commander radio. I said, thank you. I said, Sergeant, go on to the rear. He looked at me. I said, go on to the rear, Sergeant. And I called back on the company commander radio. I could talk back to battalion, see. And I said, this is King 6. See, it was a K company. King 6 is the company commander. And he said, this is King 6, And the S3, Captain Jensen says, "Is that you, Etheridge?" And I said, "Roger." Well, he knew if I was King 6, I'd on one now, on the officer left, see? He said, "You gonna take the objective? Can you take the objective?" I said, "We're gonna take it. But I got the house, I'm helping we get it." He said, "Wilcoing out." That's all he said, "Wilcoing out." Means that we'll comply. So just as we're running that old broken down building, our company came up a right rear. And I thought there were Germans and I tried to surrender what I had left, you know. It was our own I company. And you want me to stop? Talk?
No.
And then,
Can we talk a little bit about how you took your objective? Could you tell us a little bit?
I can't quite hear
Can
you.
you tell us about how you took the objective?
How we took it?
Yeah.
Hell, we just took it with the damn rifle in our hand, you know. And of course, the Germans, they're surrendered, most of them pull out. When you're going to be overrun, you don't capture them in your German. I tell you, the German was a formidable foe. Man, I respect the German. I wish I respected the French like I did the Germans, but I sure don't.
Now, on the wall out here, I see your picture with Audie Murphy.
Well, see, Artie and I were the same outfit. Now, we were not in the same company, but we're the same division.
Okay.
See? And when we was fighting the war, I didn't know Artie, and Artie didn't know me. See, Artie was a sergeant and a lieutenant, was fighting the war. And I'm a second lieutenant, first lieutenant, and captain. But we met when the war was over. See? And Artie was from Texas. And then when they started to reorganize the 36th Division, they called Artie and me to help reorganize the 36th Division. And we did, and excuse me for saying this, we did a pretty good job too. And Artie was in my battalion, see? And that's when we got to be real dear friends, after the war was over.
Okay. You were a captain. Were you in on any of the planning? Did you plan any of the battles, or were you in on the planning?
No, a captain doesn't plan a battle.
Sorry.
A captain does what he's told to do. So, when the next morning, excuse me, well, I told you there's a company coming up there, and there was my colonel sent a captain up there to take over my company. And I remember meeting this captain, and he said he was supposed to take over our company. And I told him I was glad to have him, and I'm totally exhausted, and got a pretty bad wounded leg. And he said to me, "Lieutenant, get in that damn German hole." German dug good holes, you know. He told me the second time, said, "Get in that damn German hole." And I said, "Yes, sir." I got in there, and the little medic got in there putting sulfur in my leg, you know. Of course, I passed that for about 4 hours. I was totally exhausted, you know. And not from loss of blood or anything, just exhausted. When I waked up, little Schaefer, little medic, and let me just pause a moment to tell you about that little boy. That was one of the greatest little men that God ever created. He was a medic, and little medic, the Stateless Rifle Company. And when a man is wounded, you know, he goes to him to stop blood, to do this, and he's going to die, he shoot him with morphine, you know. And artery would be falling, mortar falling, he'd never flinch. Let me tell you how respected he was. He was so respected by the other men. I have seen him when we've taken a break off the line, you know, and shooting the breeze, and this boy be saying something, this thing, and little Schaefer say something, and the fellow said, the other said, "Shut up." "What did you say, Schaefer?" That's the truth. That's how much they respected him. Oh, he was a great boy. But anyway, when I waked up, Schaefer was patting sulfur in my leg. And I said, "What time is it, Schaefer?" He said, "Everything's all right, Lieutenant, everything." I said, "I didn't ask you if everything's all right. What time is it?" He says, "You're all right, ain't you?" I said, "Yes." "What time is it?" He said, "About 4:30. We pushed off that morning at 6:30, about 4:30 in the afternoon. See? And I said, "I've been asleep." He said, "Yeah, about 4 hours." And I got up and I was ashamed of myself. I got up, I got out there to Sergeant Clemens, and boy, you talking about a hoss. He was a hoss. Do you happen to know Tommy Davis? Well, Tommy Davis teaches math at the university. Made all district, all conference of football, little All-American and everything else. He's very bright. Well, this Sergeant Clemens was just a little Tommy Davis. He was so bright. And I said to him, I said, Sergeant Clemens, where's the company commander? The captain had come to take over the company. And he said, I think I'm looking at him. I said, did you say Sergeant Clemens? He said, I think I'm looking at him. I said, what do you mean, Sergeant Clemens? He said, the captain's gone. Well, I learned later that Sergeant Clemens told him, says, we were hoping maybe the lieutenant would get the company. And of course, that captain would rather have anything than a rifle company. That's the worst thing you can have, So he called the colonel, told the colonel, that says, these boys don't want me, that they want that lieutenant to come to command. He said, well, come on the battalion. Of course, we never saw him again. The next morning, Colonel Anderson called me and said, boy, how you feeling? And I said, all right, not too bad. He said, can you walk? And I said, yes, sir. He said, how bad is that leg? I said, oh, it's not good. I said, that hunk of shrapnel fell back out. It went through my ODs into my leg, but didn't hit the bone. Of course, if it'd been strong enough to hit the bone, it'd knock my leg off,
Right.
But anyway, he said, can you come back to the battalion? I said, yes, sir. He said, are you sure? He said, now if you can, I'll send a jeep. I said, no, sir, no, sir. See, we don't like to get your jeeps so close to the front because those Germans have that German 88 millimeter, and they can shoot that thing just like a rifle. Psst, bang, your jeep's gone. Really? And so I said, no, sir, I can make it. So and when I got back there, Colonel Anderson saluted me, said, nice going, Captain. I'm a second lieutenant. I said, yeah, Captain. He says, I'm not joking with you. I turned in you for a field promotion to captain. I said, well, old man, turn it down, which he did, and hit Westmoreland, And about a week later, on a drive to Rome, this West Pointer gave the attack orders to the company commanders, which you shouldn't do. You should give it to the colonel. The colonel gives attack orders to the company commander. But he used the expression twice. Time is of essence. He had to give the order. And so in his West Point military manner, he said, are there any questions? Now mind you, I'm bloody and nasty, what I look like. And I said, I have a question, sir. What's your question, Lieutenant? Below his dignity, speak to a damn second lieutenant, I said, sir, I see no percentage in taking my company across that open terrain to which you've assigned me, when I can move 150 yards to my left and take advantage of a ravine and get within 200 yards of my objective before the enemy could fire small arms at me. He said, I don't care which way you take your company, but don't you take your objective. I said, sir, we'll take the objective. He said, are there any further questions? I said, I have none, sir. None of the other commanders said anything. So Colonel Anderson said, they were in a two-story house with binoculars watching the attack, and said, I knew he was watching you. And said, directly he said, I believe that damn lieutenant's going to take his objective. And Colonel Anderson said, yes, sir, just like he told you he would. That's the lieutenant I turned into you for field promotion to captain, which you turned down. Colonel Anderson said he didn't say anything for a little bit. He kept watching the deal. And I got those boys up there, and this means, are you ready? Got them all up there, and let's go. And we took our objective. And he said, the general said, turn that damn lieutenant back in for promotion, and I'll okay it. So Colonel Anderson turned it back in. But he okayed it back when he turned it in the first time. So I got promoted from second lieutenant to captain 6 days.
That's great.
See, on record, I had been promoted to first lieutenant. but I didn't know it, because it didn't get up to you, you know. I'm still wearing a second lieutenant bar. And when we captured Rome, a few days later, we had a party on the Tiber River, and the 12th General Hospital moved into Rome, and Lieutenant Pine, our supply officer, went back to the 12th General Hospital and got 12 nurses in a 2.5-ton truck, and they came up there and we had a dance. And the colonel stopped the dance and said, Etheridge, yes sir, front and center. I went over, what the hell, you know? I went over there and he took his second lieutenant ball off me and took a captain ball for Captain Jensen. He said, Captain Jensen? Took a captain ball, pinned that captain ball for me. And needless to say, that kind of impressed the nurses, you know. I'm not going to talk about that.
Okay.
Turn up on, I want to hear the story, so.
Called me over to meet this nurse, and he said, this was Lieutenant Ben Seward from Jackson, Tennessee. We were in the same company. And he said to this nurse, and this nurse was a captain, by the way. He was the first lieutenant, I'm a second lieutenant. And he said, introduced me to this nurse, and he said, honey, I want you to meet one of the best bastards you'll ever know. And she said, well, that's some introduction. And she shook hands with me. And I told her, I said, that's a good firm handshake. I said, I hate to shake hands with somebody that feels like a dead fish. And I said, besides, you're the first woman I have touched in 9 months, which is true. And she said, I'm sure you tell that to all the girls. And my buddy spoke up and said, by God, I'd have you know he's telling you just like it is. All he's done is done a fight a war. All he's done is fight a good, no. All he's done is fight a war, and he's done a damn good job of that. In fact, the business, he's got a wounded leg right now, and he wouldn't want you to know it. And she said, have you? And I said, yes. And anyway, she just reached over and kissed me. And when she did, I said, honey, that's the second time I've touched a woman in 9 months. And she said, bless your heart. But anyway, are we still on?
Yeah.
You better cut it off.
Okay.
Rome about the time of D-Day, correct?
We captured Rome on June the 5th. The Normandy invasion was June the 6th. On June the 7th, I was 29.
Okay. What did you think of the Normandy invasions from where you were?
Of course, we was quite pleased, and we kind of knew it was coming, just a matter of time, you know. Didn't know exactly when. But you see, it was, then we left Rome, and we went down back down to southern Italy, and then trained for 2 or 3 months, then we hit southern France. Right. Incidentally, I got a write-up, a United Press write-up, when we hit France, that's commending the farthest troops inland the first day.
Wow. That's fantastic.
The company objective was Coglan. There was also the division objective, corps objective. That was my objective, and I took it. And then my colonel told me to turn left, and by that time my tanks and TDs had caught up with us. And then we started riding on those tanks and TDs when we didn't have an opposition. You know, you'd get off of them, and then it told us to go to Cogolin, C-O-G-O-L-I-N, Cogolin. No, Pierrefitte. And we got the edge of Pierrefitte, and I called the colonel and told him we was going to take Pierrefitte, and he said, boy, you're rolling. I said, yes, sir, we're rolling. And when we got there, this was quite an experience. When we got there, captured this little town, Pierrefitte. The French took a bunch of young women that'd been fraternized with the Germans and took them out there and clipped all the hair off. I felt so sorry for those girls, young women, you know. And Meantime, I'm communicating with my colonel, and he says for me to come back to Cumberland, which was, I think, 18 miles. Then I said, sir, we can't make it. We're just totally exhausted. And he said, well, put some troops on tanks and TDs and come back to Cumberland. And I argued somewhat, you know. But, you know, you don't argue with the colonel when you're a captain. And I said, very well, sir. And we'd fall off, we'd go to sleep, we'd fall off those tanks. And it's terrible. And we finally got back there, and I learned later that the reason we had to pull back so the damn French could take parachute.
And that's why you said that about the French earlier, I bet.
Oh, I'll tell you. Let me tell you one other thing about the French. One time I was in France, and Colonel Ederson, incidentally, let me say something for him. That's one of the finest officers that God ever created, my colonel. Colonel Ederson, he's been to my home, by the way. And Colonel Ederson said, Etheridge, and when he talked serious to you, he didn't give you benefit of rank. You know, he said, Etheridge, yes, sir. He said, I want you to go across here, I want you to make contact with the French. And I said, very well, sir. He said, now be careful. I said, what do you mean, be careful? He said, be careful and don't get in a firefight with them. I said, I'm not going to get in a fight with them. He said, you don't know the damn crazy French. Be careful. But anyway, I was careful. So, and I reported this colonel. Now, you men listen to this. That colonel would not let me leave until he killed a chicken, cooked the chicken, and I ate with him. No one of the damn Germans they'll take those Frenchmen anytime they want to. I'll guarantee you.